everyone. It's your host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we have a very prolific, very entrepreneurial, very just changing the game. This woman we have coming to the stage. Today's guest is someone who wears more hats than most of us have shells for. I can't help but introduce Miss Raquel Brenke, attorney, business strategist, Team USA triathlete, and mom of 5. She's a powerhouse behind the legal game. She provides legal resources for photographers, Fit Legally, which serves her fitness community and wellness industry, and Eden Law, a boutique virtual law firm helping entrepreneurs protect and grow their brands across the U.S. And we have the distinct honor to host this woman today on Gentleman Style Podcast Show today. And she's helping us, you, me, us, peel back the layers and what we should have known when we started business. So help me welcome to the stage the incredible Miss Raquel Brenke. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Anytime someone gives me such a great, actually it's probably one of the best introductions I've ever had, but I'm always like, oh man, the bar's so high now, so I gotta bring my A game. But that's good, that's what I live for.
You always bring your A game. Again, as a mom, triathlete, you're doing it all. Business strategy, lawyer, boutique, you do it all. So this resume, your resume is extensive, ma'am, and you're absolutely dynamic. This is you we are here to talk to and talk about today. But first off, I want to ask the question: what got your interest? Because a law degree, it's not easy, right? Extensive. It's up there with doctorate and lawyers and physicians and brain surgeons and all of it. You guys are in high regard. And so, when did you know and set off on a path to work in laws, more specifically business law?
Yeah, so this is actually, I was an entrepreneur first. It's a long story, but my husband at the time, he was active duty military, and we had our oldest, and I just always kind of knew that I didn't fit into the box, the 9-to-5 cubicle. I mean, I like school, but the whole idea of being confined and asking someone for permission to take PTO, that sort of stuff, never really resonated with me really well. And so when I was in undergrad, got married, had my son, this was the height of the Iraq war. So my ex-husband was in and out of America a lot to Iraq, and I needed something more flexible and wanted something more flexible anyways. And around that time is also when I was diagnosed with cancer at the tender age of 20. And so I was doing these multiple businesses online. I had a graphic design, apparel shop, and all these things. And as I was learning that there was this huge gap of things that I didn't know, law was one of them. And so I ended up, I got my MBA, then I went to law school, and I just kind of molded all that together, melted all of it together. So by the time I graduated law school, that's how I got into business law, to help those, more specifically mothers or just parents, to be able to have the lifestyle that I wanted for myself, I wanted for my kids, more flexible. I always say, create your real business to have your real life. And that's however you define it to be, either real business or real life. And so I really liked culminating everything that I had learned as an entrepreneur, as a mom, and then as a lawyer to do what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. That is a lot. I told you, don't have enough shelves to handle it all. Can you share for the women watching you right now, how do you stay grounded? You do it all. You're a mom, 5, business lawyer, triathlete. You look great, by the way. You're killing it. You're killing the game. How do you balance it all for the young lady out there watching you right now who's feeling discouraged, right? And doesn't know if she can juggle a family life, married life, kids life, all of the things that you have successfully done. Can you spill some tea there?
I think the most important part of this is to understand that everything you listed in my intro, and even the nuggets and the little tidbits I've given so far, that's 20 years worth of stuff. This isn't all that's been happening at the same time. And, I feel like everyone realizes you go through different seasons in life. And that's kind of how I've gotten into these other niche brands, because it was something that I was interested in at the time. I saw a need and developed it. But to your question, to say have it all, right? Everyone defines that differently. And I'm in a new stage of life now where I've had to scale back I even had like a little twinge of sadness when you were doing the intro about me, because I felt like there was a period of my life where I was doing all those things, and now my priorities have shifted. And so I think that is the key. Is to, and we kind of learned this during pandemic, right? We were forced to be home. We were forced, if you were a parent, to do virtual learning from home. You were still trying, if you had a job still, thankfully I did, you're still having to do that to help support your family. I think the most important thing is, if you're wanting to try to have it all, whatever you define that to be, is making sure that you don't put your head down and put the blinders on. Because one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be so burnt out, and it's gradual, it's incremental, right? You don't recognize that you're burnt out until you're falling asleep and sleeping 12 hours on the couch, and you're like, what is going on with me? So I think what is important is scheduling, not putting your head in the sand, putting the blinders on and thinking, I can do it all, I have to do it all. And I really put that on myself for a long time. And pandemic really showed me that I had to adjust to the season of life. So really, if you're wanting to do whatever it is, if you want to go to law school, have a family, have a career, whatever that looks like for you, just recognize, like, we all have 24 hours in a day. We only have a certain amount, we have a finite amount of energy as well that we can give into the different areas of our life, our relationships, if we're a parent, our professional, our friendships, to ourselves. Just keep in check with that and checking in with yourself routinely. Because for a long time, I was driven very much with pride that I was doing it all, until I was completely burnt out. And actually back in 2018, I believe, my body revolted against me and had all these weird symptoms, went to Johns Hopkins, all these different places across America to figure out what was wrong. And honestly, I never got a diagnosis. And so I finally said, something's got to give. And I started doing a lot more like inward recognition of what I've said. Look around at circumstances and the season of life that you're in, and scale back if you need to. That's not a failure. You're going to be a failure to everyone and yourself if you just power through to have it all.
Absolutely. I want to first double back. That is incredible. That's an incredible nugget and incredible advice, and the heart of you. And I want to say, first off, you mentioned cancer. What that diagnosis, the thing that was setting you back, that was the cancer that you had mentioned earlier?
So I had cancer back in 2007, and then I had so I've been cancer-free since then. Actually, you know what? Today is my cancer-free anniversary. Yes. I won't do math in public because I am a lawyer, so you guys can do the math on that if that was back in 2007. But no, it just was this weird, back in 2018, it was completely not cancer related. It really was just, I was trying to do, and that was pre-pandemic. So imagine if I hadn't learned that lesson going into pandemic with how everything changed. No, it just, my body was just so tired because I was trying to do it all. And I really had to step back and go, okay, I have to fix something here, or I'm not going to be good in any areas of my life. And that would be more devastating to me than just ebbing and flowing the energy output to those different pillars of things that I was committed to and interested in.
Absolutely. I want you to speak to the fact, I think a lot of people see you and they see other celebrities and they see all these people on TikTok and Instagram, and they think entrepreneurship is the way. The Lamborghinis, the cars, the mansions, the palaces, the Dubai trips all happen overnight. And so can you share, I think social media does it injustice, and even more so those influencers who just highlight, look at my Lamborghini, look at my Ferrari, right? Can you share one of your biggest professional failures? You shared one, just scheduling your time, not getting your head in the sand, but can you share another one that really kind of just really stood out to you and is still paying homage to you, and you're learning from today, and helps you succeed?
So it's interesting. I'm not a very emotional crying type person. And just when you were talking, I kind of started tearing up because, the phase of life I'm in now, I'm going through a divorce, I'm becoming a single mom to 5 kids, and that's a whole learning experience on its own. And I've really realized that my real business, real life has changed. And it has gone from, been to Dubai, loved it. I don't own a Lamborghini, don't really desire to, but whatever someone's equivalent of that would be, it really has shifted from traveling the world, doing all those things, to now I'm so thankful to myself every day that I started creating this path. And, because I've gone through cancer, I've gone through a husband that was deployed, there was infertility, there was just, I mentioned the sickness, there was other things that happened. And the one thing that I've been grateful for through this whole time is that I had created this path that was my own. Now, of course, that comes with its own host of responsibility and burden, especially being a single woman with 5 kids now. I know that I'm the sole provider when they're with me for me, but I still just am so thankful for taking the steps. And it is funny because, I got into creating my own path, like I mentioned, because I didn't really feel like I fit in the 9 to 5. So I felt like once I accomplished that, I checked the box. But I did move to that whole idea of travel the world, do this. And I did a lot of that. But more practically, being an entrepreneur and choosing this path has been the backbone, not just for the Dubai trips and all that sort of stuff, but being able to provide for family and for self through whatever is going to come in life. I mean, I've already mentioned like 4 or 5 different things that have happened. I still have a way better life than many of the other struggles that are out there. I'm just so thankful that every day I thank the 2020, that was not long ago, 2005 me that started on this journey, because I honestly don't know where I would be with that. I think it's back to that season of life thing. I know we kind of talked about that a bit, but it's adjusting the perspective. I do get sad. My time hop pops up. It showed me recently that I had just done some marathons overseas, and I was like, oh, I missed that life, but that's okay right now because that's not what I'm meant to be doing at this point. And to answer your question about failure in my long-winded fashion, I think I don't really have one thing that's been a failure. Everything has really been either a forced choice, like being sick, or a conscious, intentional choice, kind of like the season of life I am in now. But when you mention failure, I don't really think it fits with what you asked, but it's the only thing that I can think of. And actually it just happened. The anniversary of it was yesterday. I had a book deal. So I've self-published a few books. I've done some of those half publishing houses. I have 7 or 8 books now. And I had gotten a good publishing deal, or what I thought was, and I felt really railroaded through the whole process. And I didn't feel like it was my voice. It wasn't my brand. And I had built so much over the years in this hard work. The night before the book was to hit the shelves, Target, it was already on Kindle and all these other places, I pulled the ripcord because it wasn't true to who I was. And so that's kind of a failure in that was one of my big goals, was to have a big publishing deal. And I had to deal with the fallout from pulling out of it. But I also don't think it was a failure because it's that season of life thing. It wasn't true to who I was and what I was going through. And I felt like it'd be very inauthentic to, I hate to use the term audience, but it is true, like to my audience, to my clients, to my friends, and to myself.
Absolutely. That is huge. That is big, and that's significant. Speaking to your audience and speaking to continuity and staying true to your brand, what is it what advice as a business strategist, as a lawyer, you would give to someone who is struggling with the same thing, right? What should they publish themselves and stay away from these big corporations that are trying to penny pinch you and steal your compensation, or is it read the contract? What advice would you give to someone going through that journey right now? What would you do differently?
As you saw, like, it was a failure, but it really wasn't, because at the end of the
Right.
day, I felt more like a failure staying in that book deal because I wasn't being true to it. Like I mentioned before, the trajectory of my professional career has been really in line with who I am at that chapter of my life, my interests, the things that I'm doing, the needs that I see, the heart for people that I have at that time that can ebb and flow, just the issues that are happening in society. And so I think being open to that, you'd want to have continuity, like you mentioned, you want to have consistency for your audience. So from the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to speak and help other parents or moms be able to create this real business, to have a real life. And so I have my own content pillars with that. And those are really good beacons for me to make a decision. And that was kind of what helped in the end for me to unravel that book deal at the last minute. But I just, you want to have continuity. I don't really know how to explain it. You want to have continuity with the pillars of who you are, to be authentic, because that's what your audience connects with. But they also are your audience is changing in life. I mean, we saw this like during pandemic, we've seen this politically, we've seen this just in the last, 10, 15, 20 years, things ebb and flow in life. And so you can have your conversation or your offerings or whatever it looks like to change to meet those needs that are in the marketplace. But I still think it needs to be grounded in like what your pillars are. Again, like mine was, being a parent, being able to support, being present for my kids, and the just who I am as a person, just having those pillars ground you, those will really help you, especially when you get enticed by a good book deal or something that's out there. You initially ask, like, should they choose to go like big publishing or not? And I think we're in an age now, and I'm a little envious from when I started out, and I'm going to age myself a bit when I say this. When I first started out, Facebook didn't exist. Instagram, TikTok obviously did not. Pinterest did not. Believe we may still have had MySpace. So the freemium information, the platforms, and the accessibility to audience was very limited. But I think and it can be overwhelming right now because there's so many platforms and there's so many voices. But if you drill down into those, your main, I was about to say 4 pillars because I have 4, but if you drill down into your main pillars of who you are and how you want to connect with your audience, it doesn't matter what platform comes. It doesn't matter that there's so many voices out there. You will end up attracting and being able to serve the right people. And that will help dictate your decisions. Do I go big publishing house or not? Like for me, at the 11th hour, I just was like, you know what? The cover is not me. They changed my voice on the inside. And there may have been a little fear of me thinking, oh, the audience may go, this sounds nothing like you. But that was important because I've been consistent in how I've shown up to my audience, that I did not want this big publishing house, authority building check mark to undermine all of that. To me, that was the cost benefit I did at the end of the day, and it wasn't worth it.
That's true. That's true. Miss Brenke, y'all. Miss Brenke, a heart of pure gold. There's what I get from you is there's a saying that when you achieve certain things and you achieve success, as you have achieved in many stratospheres and attained a certain level of success, it almost what I'm hearing is it almost becomes like, okay, I'm at the top of the mountain. What's next? Or what else? And we spend a lot of time trying to get to the top thinking, I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to be complete when I get to the top. And then you get there and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm here. What else? And I need something else. Hence the grounding yourself, hence the reconnecting yourself, the rediscovery and the inner work that you've taken all these life lessons and you're now reflecting on them and said, man, this has been an incredible life, an incredible journey. And now that's why you connect with your audience. That's why you connect with your followers, and you because you're staying true to yourself and who you are. And our life experience is what made you who you are. And that's why people listen to you. And that's why people engage with you and follow you and believe in you, because I think subconsciously we all see ourselves in you. Right. And you're doing the thing that young girl sees. Well, I can do it. She looks like me. I can do this. I can survive divorce. I can survive a triathlon. I can run that 5K. I can do that marathon. I can do that polar plunge. And so it's that's what I'm hearing. And it's really necessary. And I think no one gets to the top through successes. It's when you fail. Right.
Yeah.
That's the lesson. Right. Because if all you do is win, you never learn anything.
Mm-mm.
You would never be as grounded, as affirmed, and just changing as many lives as you possibly can that you are today without those experiences. So I applaud you for taking the face punch and taking those hard jabs when for me and for everyone that follows you. It's absolutely necessary. You are necessary. And I appreciate you.
I appreciate that. One thing that just came up while you were talking that I wanted to mention earlier, you asked about piece of advice for maybe a young woman looking to me. And it's going to sound really weird for you all that are like in the beginning of your journey or you're struggling. I actually kind of really miss the days when I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it. I mean, it was a lot of learning lessons. It was like baptism by fire, but I really do miss, and I know that's going to sound really foreign, especially it may be really heartbreaking to some people if you're sitting there and you're trying to financially make ends meet. You're just trying to make your hours in the day meet. Because when you're in it, you don't see it. You just feel that overwhelm. But I look back with nostalgia of that time, and I do kind of miss it because I learned, well, one, I had the fire under me, right? Way more than when you get to like the first peak that you get to. You mentioned what's next. I have found that as you grow, sometimes that fire can reduce a little bit. You can become a little complacent if you don't stay intentional with it. I just remember, it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. One of my first online products that I put up for sale, I remember sitting and refreshing the computer, laying on my living room floor, and I'm just refresh. And I'm watching the visitors and I'm watching all the hard work of how many years and seeing that I was meeting a need that people wanted. And I knew I was also gonna be able to financially pay the bills for my family that month. And it was just so incredible. And I miss those first wins, and I do miss the first struggles. So I think what I would encourage, if you're in that phase of life, I didn't journal then, and I wish I had. I wish we have more documentation now with Instagram and all of that, but I wish I had been more intentional to look back, because now when I do get into, all right, well, I've reached this peak, what's next? I can look back to that person's mindset, me 10, 15 years ago, and go, okay, this is what's going through their mind. That's the same fuel that I want to use now. So I definitely encourage, enjoy the season that you're in, even though if it's overwhelming, but document and celebrate the small wins, because they do all add up. And that sounds so cliche, but it really is true.
It does. It does. Track your progress. That's what you do at the gym, right? You track your progress. That's how you know, okay, I did 10 reps last time. I did 15, so I'm improving, versus I did 10 reps and now I did 4. I'm going down. So track your progress, y'all. Track
Well, I
your
also
progress.
do it in the inverse too. I mean, like I do time tracking, which I know sounds like a lawyer thing, but I did it prior to even being an attorney. Where does your time go during the day? It's kind of like if you're trying to lose weight or make gains, depending on what your fitness goals are, tracking, because it's so easy. Let's say you're trying to lose some weight. It's easy for you to go, oh yeah, I only had this amount of calories. And when you sit down and input it into your app, you go, oh, I had 3 Snickers, not 1. Yeah, that's a problem. It's the same thing in your business and in your life, tracking where your time is going, and where and how you, and I'm pretty regimented when it comes, I do a lot of block scheduling. And it's pretty variable with my custody schedule right now. Like we're doing this in the evening and I love it, and that's fine for me. But yeah, I just think identifying the amount of time that you put into certain tasks will show you inefficiency, things you don't like that you maybe can outsource if you can get to that point financially to do, and just so that you keep yourself in check, because I think it's really easy, especially to fall in the hole of doom scrolling. Oh, I'm just going to research on TikTok for 4 hours and that's going to help my business. But is it really moving the needle is the question.
That's a great question. I think too many people, especially when they start out in entrepreneurship, they think they can't afford a lawyer. But what is the cost or the value that they're losing by not hiring a lawyer, or hiring a professional business strategist like yourself to help them through? What is the sum cost of that? Should I start with a lawyer in my new business, or?
Before I answer this, just want you to know, like for the first 10 years of my businesses, I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I was waiting tables in the evenings, and I was basically putting all that money into my businesses, some bills, but mostly into the businesses to grow it. So when I say what I'm about to say, I've been there and I understand. Having a lawyer at that time wasn't even in my thought process at all. But now that I'm on this side of it and I represent business clients, there is great danger in the mindset of, oh, it'll never happen to me. I could spend an hour telling you all sorts of scary stories, and most people will close this podcast, never come back. But inevitably, I travel to conferences, I'm on podcasts all the time, and within a year of them listening to it or seeing me speak, they'll go, yep, I thought it wouldn't happen to me, and they're in my inbox for help. So I think at a minimum, when you're starting out, find a good business attorney. Like for me, we're nationwide. Technically, we're actually international, but we're nationwide. So we're able to help in many states. Just go in and try to getting like a checklist style of all the things that you need to do. Doesn't mean you have to do it all right then, but so that you can put that into your business plan, you can financially plan for it. Things like setting up your limited liability company, having the proper contracts and all that. I don't do a lot of litigation unless it's an existing business client who happens to have an issue. But over the years, the biggest issues I've seen have been individuals, businesses that have drafted their own contracts. And as opposed to paying, like $500 over here for the contract, they spent $10,000 in court to defend some self-written or borrowed contract. Then they still end up having to pay that $500 in the end to get their contract written. And it's a lot of time, money, and energy away from your business. So it's not even just the financial cost. I just recently had another client who came to me because she was being sued in federal court for trademark infringement because she simply didn't know. So one of the ways that I work, and I know I love the legal field, has really been pulled into the future here. I mentioned pandemic a few times because that was a big pivotal point in my career as well, but it's pulled the legal field into the future that a lot of attorneys will do virtual legal audits. They'll walk you through all the things that you need to do just so you make sure you have all of that tightened up. Like this client just didn't know what she didn't know, and she was looking at millions of dollars in paying out of her profits simply because she put something on her website that she didn't know she couldn't put there. And so this is why I highly encourage, the way that I approach it, every client that comes to me, we do what's called an initial legal strategy meeting. And we give you a checklist. I walk through all those things with you, and we give you a plan. Even if you don't do it with us, and you can't do it all immediately, but that way and I tell you, when you get to these junctures in your business, such as like when you're ready to hire somebody or whatever, we tell you you have a whole map of that. I think that is so incredibly valuable. And one of the reasons I've never given that up, that's like the key thing that I offer, is because I never had that. I had no idea how to even talk to a lawyer when I first started out. But yeah, it's one of the most heartbreaking things for me, since I'm an entrepreneur first and then lawyer second, is to have conversations with business owners, entrepreneurs who get into a situation simply because they didn't know, and then they're stuck, like I mentioned, taking that time, money, and energy away from their business, away from their family, and away from themselves.
So on the flip side of that, what is if someone had approached you first, what is the process, or how does it differ if I want to do something to my website, or I want to add something, or I'm generating a logo? What is the checks for that? Is there a legal process to check to make sure no one is using my idea, or I discover that someone else is using something that I thought of first? Or how do I prove that?
I'm smiling because this is one of my favorite questions, because I love trademarks, because I love brands. I mean, we already talked about building a brand kind of and having an audience. We didn't use those terms, but having your brand at the end of the day, the continuity, the pillars that we talked about, is so incredibly important. But I've seen, especially in the last few years, a lot of people that became very popular with TikTok build a brand, but they didn't do the proper trademark checks on the name, the logo, slogans, and then we end up having to have a tough conversation, because come to find out, somebody else already had that for the same product or service that they were offering. They've already registered it. And these influencers or entrepreneurs are faced with, oh my gosh, being sued or could be sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then they go, and then I still have to rebrand. And I'm like, yes. So that's why it's so important and I get it, it's like a chicken egg type of situation. You want to build your business because you're not sure if it's going to be viable. You believe it could be, but you're not really sure if you want to have the market tell you that it's viable before you invest in protecting the brand. But then you run into this weird situation of, if you end up infringing upon somebody, or on the flip side, if you were one of the first, we do the trademarks, we get it all, you have to understand that there's a responsibility that, and you want to have your own brand, like with the Gentleman's Podcast. Like don't want someone else with the same name, because what if they're really bad podcasters? What if they have a really bad reputation? What if they treat their guests really awful? You don't want them, like audience members, to get confused between the two, and all of a sudden their bad reputation or business is imparted upon you. That's why trademarks are so important, to preserve your brand. But you have to do it as soon as possible, because weekly, like tomorrow, I have got 3 or 4 calls, and I know at least 2 of them are trademark calls that I've already done the prep for, that I'm going to have to suggest rebrand. And I don't say that lightly, because I understand what it's like to build a brand.
It's going to hurt. You already know it's going to hurt. what is the difference between trademarking and I think it's copyright? Trademarking, the difference between trademarks and copyrights. Can you explain that for
Yep.
us?
Good question. So trademarks are what's called a source indicator. I always visualize Nike shoes. You got the swoosh, you've got the Nike name, and you got just do it. That's indicating where that product is coming from. Copyright is going to protect more of like a physical asset. So this podcast would be copyright protected. The text or cover of your book, your videos on YouTube, the photos that you use on your Instagram, those are going to be copyright protected. They work in tandem though, not to make anybody's brain explode, but like if you have a logo, you technically have trademark and copyright. You do trademark, you register that with the trademark office to protect, to ensure that no one else with offering that same product or service has the same or similar logo or name. And then you also have copyright protection in the design of that logo. So there's overlap. That's a little bit much, but yeah. So when you're looking at brand protection, I think of it from top down: trademark, name, logo, slogans. And when I say name, it can be business name, product name, course name, whatever your business is. We can dig into the nuances of that. But copyright, really everyone has, because you have an Instagram, you have YouTube, you have a TikTok, the videos you're creating, the photos you're creating, you have copyright protections in those as well. It's so funny because I never thought this would really be an area of law that I would get into until I saw the value of it when I was growing my own business.
Absolutely. You saw the benefit firsthand yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I want to, in this artificial intelligence world and ChatGPT world, in this artificial intelligence world, who does copyright actually belong to or trademark actually belong to? If I use ChatGPT to create my logo, if I use someone on Fiverr, or what's the other one, Thumbtack, or one of these
Or
marketplaces to
Upwork,
buy,
yeah.
or Upwork, who does that belong to? Does it belong to the content creator who paid the person to make my logo, or does it belong to the actual content creator who actually made it?
I love this. I was actually invited to speak at Harvard Business School on AI and the law last year, and so much actually has changed even since then because AI is moving so quick, the law can't keep up. But this is a very common question. And it's really not so far off from even before AI became such a big, accessible thing to the consuming public. Like you mentioned, if you have someone on like Upwork, Fiverr, Thumbtack, or whatever, create you a logo, if they're not a W-2 type employee or classified as an employee for your company, by default, that individual or company retains the rights in that logo. This is one of the very first things that I ask if someone comes to me about trademarking and copyright work. I say, did you create it? And I find out, how did they create it? Because in Canva, did they use clip art? What did you substantially put creative input into this? Did someone else create it? If someone else created it, I'm going to leave AI off the table for a second. But if
Sure.
someone else created it, they have by default in the US the copyright ownership of that logo or design, photos, whatever it is. The only way they can be transferred is either by they're an employee that works for your company. But even then, I still require my employees, for anything they create for me, to sign it over by contract so that I own it. Because one of the things that we see happens is, and I get it, I've been there, you're not sure if you're gonna be able to make it, you don't want to spend a lot on a logo. Your friend down the street went to school for graphic design, you had her create it, she moved, you never hear from her again, and then you come to me because you want to trademark the logo. Well, when we go to submit the application to the trademark office, we have to sign off under perjury of law that you have the ownership rights to do that. And if you didn't get it, if they were an employee of yours, but they didn't sign it over by contract, or you didn't create it all yourself, we're not able to submit that application. And I've seen this happen. And I tell you what, I am not committing perjury. I don't look good in prison orange, so we're not doing that. But yeah, it's a really unfortunate thing because this is one area that hits any type of business owner. Any business owner out there that you talk to, they have a brand. Whether it's truly legally protectable at some point or not, they've got assets that need to be protected, whether it's a logo, photo, video, etc. Now, getting into AI, this is that little fast area that I referenced in the area of law. The Copyright Office came out last year because they had someone that had submitted a comic book created or a graphic novel all through AI, wanted to be legally protectable. Well, under copyright law, it has to be human input. And I know the arguments, well, AI is only as good as the prompts. You have to, you're putting human input into that. But the output of it, the baseline is anything that's AI generated as of right now is not copyright protectable. This might change. I can't anticipate it. Maybe I'm not a fortune teller, but I do know that the Copyright Office went from, if there's anything AI in a book or asset, whatever it is that you're submitting, none of it's protectable. Then they've shifted to just excluding the pieces that were AI, which is fine, because old school, pre-AI, it was the same way. Let's say I hire you, Marcus, to design the cover of my book and maybe some graphics throughout it, but I never get it signed over to me. I just put on the application that I'm excluding those from ownership. And that's kind of the same way of my ownership. That's kind of the same way that they're taking out, the Copyright Office is taking applications and doing registrations under the AI piece right now.
Ooh. Nuggets, gems. If I had a microphone, I'd give it to you so you could drop it. Not the microphone you're using.
I've got one over here, but I don't want to get my floor. No, I'm not anti-AI. I love ChatGPT, Gemini, all those programs. I think they're great. But at the end of the day, we have to remember you didn't ask me this, but you don't want to put consumer data in there. So client, customer information, that's very heavily regulated in the States now. There's 5 or 6 states that have heavy regulation on that. More states are coming. That's that whole thing. Every time you get an email, we've updated our privacy policy. That's what that's referring to. You don't want to be submitting that information into there. You really don't want to be putting your proprietary information in there. Maybe you come up with a really good method of how things work in your business. You're feeding it into a machine that can then give that idea to competitors or other business owners. So I'm not anti-AI. I love it for certain things, but it's definitely with the legal piece, and then the whole that I'm protective of my brand and my own information and then my customers' information. There's limits that you should put on yourself of using it.
Absolutely agree with you. I think we failed that test on, I think it was Facebook a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, where it was this app that was really being pushed. And it was basically, hey, upload 20 profile photos, and then we're going to kick back this avatar of you. And thousands of people uploaded their personal information and signed all the check blocks and moved forward with it and uploaded their pictures. And come to find out later on that people had basically signed their image away, because in that disclosure, it said that we can reuse this image that we created because we created it of you to sell down the road, or put on a book cover, or put on an image, or put on some artwork. And we basically sold our images of ourselves. So imagine that you're walking down the street and you see a book cover, or you see an advertisement that's generated, right? It's not you, because you didn't get paid for it, but you signed it away. You signed away your image, right? I think actors are going through the same thing, and rappers and music artists are going through the same thing, where their voice can be, someone can write a whole album in their tone, in their phrase, their common phrases, and the artist never gets a dime because they use the AI to generate it. So it's hugely scary.
It is scary, but we can, even outside of AI, we can make it even more simplistic than that. In the old school pre-AI days, this is why I think it's so important as a business owner, especially if you are the face of your brand, that anytime you have an asset, photo, video, whatever, that is you in it, your business needs to own it. Because we mentioned what happens if you have like an Upworker create your logo for you. Well, by default in the photography industry, depends on the photographer, always check the contract, but by default, typically the situation you see is where, Marcus, you're the photographer, you're going to take photos of me, you're going to retain the copyright, I'm just going to get a permission, a license to use it. Technically, you could go and take that photo and use it however you want, depending on the language of the agreement. But I never have wanted to risk my photo. I mentioned earlier, like the whole reputation, if someone came up with a similar podcast name, maybe they're really bad podcasters, whatever, bad reputation there. But I don't want my photos to be used in such a way that damages my brand. What if it ends up on a seedy website? And one of the things with the US copyright law is, if you're the photographer, you would never do this, but a photographer, so I won't use you, takes my photo with me in it and submits it to some seedy site, I really have very little legal recourse to get it taken down. And I'm the only Rachel Brenke in the world. And so they put my name on it. It's going to come up in all my Google. My kids are seeing that. My clients are seeing that. And I'm not talking about like sleazy photos of me just taking my photo. Maybe they're photoshopping it onto something, right? We don't know. And so for me, that's a real brand protection thing, that anytime that someone creates, especially photos with my likeness in it, I want to own it.
So you don't by default, because you can prove it's you. Hey, judge. Hey, Your Honor. Hey, Mr. Lawyer. Hey, Mrs. Lawyer. It's me on this book cover that I didn't consent to. You can prove that though, right?
Well, so it's two competing things. So that you have, let's say it's a photograph. So you have the photograph of myself. There's ownership rights, the copyright ownership in the photograph. All I have as the face in the photograph would be the control of my likeness, but that's state controlled. Not all states have a property right in the use of likeness. And so it's a lot weaker, whereas the copyright law is federal. Your likeness rights are fairly state. I'm speaking generally because they all vary on that. You just have a stronger argument when it's time to go, you find your photo on a site you don't want it to be on that has your face in it. If I'm the copyright holder to get it taken down, it's a longer, harder, more expensive path if it's just my likeness.
Wow. Gems. Big gems. I want to focus back on businesses, something that I've been experiencing myself, and it's always a tangle with non-compete clauses, right? Do you feel, or you probably don't, but do you think a non-compete clause is ethical, or do they stifle innovation?
Oh, see, this is a hard question. I hate to give the lawyer answer if it depends. The idea, we've seen this wave of the Federal Trade Commission, really not cracking down on the use of non-competes. And I'm using that term very generally. Anytime you say like services contract, non-compete, it all is really going to boil down to what the language in it that's in it. But if we're going to focus on what the goal of a non-compete is, to keep someone from working for you, then going to directly compete against you, is a very rudimentary explanation. I understand the courts and government's reasoning for wanting to get rid of non-competes. They want to facilitate this free flow of commerce, employment, don't want to restrict someone's attempt to gain a livelihood, etc. But as a business owner, this is the competing part, is if I put time and money and energy into training and growing and cultivating this employee, only for them to turn around and be my direct competitor, I mean, I guess that's just a risk that I have to take. It's just a cost of doing business. At the end of the day, is kind of where I've landed. But these are two competing things for myself. I do agree that, because the way the non-competes have been working through in courts recently, used to be, they were pretty, depending on how they're drafted, were pretty valid, can be enforceable. All states have a requirement. It typically is length of time, scope, geographical location, which when it's the internet at this rate with everything that everyone's doing is fairly null. But there have moved from that being able to be applied to any level of employee, from C-suite all the way down to data entry. It's been moving to now to be more for non-competes to be enforceable against more executive level individuals. The idea kind of is the closer you are to the sun, closer you are to the top, maybe the more valuable information you have, that protects that business's interest of putting that time, money, and energy into you. But to answer your question, I don't know. I look at it from both sides, and I may have had a different answer 5 years ago. It's just tough as a business owner to put all those resources into somebody and for them to move on and then be directly competing. I haven't had that happen yet, knock on wood, but I see it happen with clients, and it's just unfortunate. But I understand if I needed to go work for somebody or I needed to change jobs, I can't imagine how it would feel if I needed to pay bills and feed my kids to be restricted by a contract either.
Absolutely. It's one of the dilemmas, I think, every business owner has to go through, at least a morally guided one. It's hard. It's a
Mhm.
hard. I remember a famous quote that I still try to live by, and I don't know if I'm succeeding or not. But I always hear the quote of, it's two owners of a company and they're discussing to invest in their people or not, right? Do I invest in my people? Do I spend the money, the hours, the time, the education, the resources, right, and pour into these people, and they leave, right? But then the rebuttal is, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And so I have struggled, and I have struggled with that because it's hard. I can pour all these dollars into someone, and then they take all the hard work and the time, and I can't get back that money, right?
Right.
Or any of that time and resource I put into them, and now they're gone, and they go do it and mimic it somewhere else. And I can't restrict them in any kind of way.
Mhm.
And so that's super, super hard.
So I'll parallel that to actually something I just talked with my therapist today about, and I've thought about a lot in recent years. You know, I am one of those that always believes the best in people. And sometimes that comes back to bite me in the rear end. But what I have consistently said, that I would rather believe in someone, so like from the business side, invest in them and see what happens and to see what results out of that. But I also can have boundaries too. I can get to a point. The inverse would be that I'm just skeptical. I don't pour into them. I get bad, employee return like that, or even like on a personal side. If I'm going to be skeptical, I'm not, or cynical, I'm never going to have any good interpersonal relationships. So, and maybe in 10 years we'll do this podcast again, and maybe I'll be cynical then. I don't know. I'm 20 years into this, and I still have the mindset that I would rather pour into people, grow people, love people, whether it's business or personal. But it has to be a boundary. So like on a business side, that's where it comes in of having probationary periods in your contracts. Yes, I got to bring it back around to legal, doing performance improvement plans, but having that boundary, because you can't just be an unfettered, unchecked source of giving away all those resources, because you're not going to have a business or you're going to be burnt out at the end of the day, whether we're talking about personal or business.
Absolutely. Because that'll travel, right? Oh, go over here. They're giving resources. They're paying this amount of money. They're doing this to pay for all your training. And then now I've created this superhero rock star person. And then they go off into the sunset with yeah. Yeah. So I'll go ahead.
I'm often countered with that, though, is people will say, when I have this conversation with other entrepreneurs, they'll say, well, if you treat your people really good, they'll just never leave. And I'm like, I think that's a really idealistic way to look at it, because you don't know what their life circumstances are. You don't know if right now for their season of life, the way that we work and give to them works, and it doesn't work in the future. I don't know. I would like to have that stars in my eyes of, if I pour into these people, I love them, they love me, we're a family. But I'll give a perfect example. I had a paralegal for 12 or 13 years, 12 years, I believe. Loved her, still love her, would take her back, but she ended up having to leave because she had to take care of her terminal mother-in-law. So it wasn't because I didn't pour in. She stayed for so long because I poured in and loved her, but she just couldn't handle the stress of both at the same time. That had nothing to do with me.
That's fair. That's fair. Have you ever advised a client against something that was legal but morally questionable? Take your time and feel through that.
Do you have an example?
I have an example. Okay, so something that was legal but morally questionable. So, so I'll use this because my background is finance. Um, One of the things that Wells Fargo, I used to work at Wells Fargo as a personal banker. I was right after the scam.
I was wondering. I was going to ask. I didn't want to ask on the air.
I gotta put that disclaimer out there. I was right after. I had just onboarded, went to training, stayed in the hotel, and I was being trained. I think I left for the hotel that Sunday. Monday, the news hit the fan. So we're in class, in training, and everything is sell, checking accounts, saving accounts, do it all, credit cards, get the client in the door. And then the Monday was, or the next week was, hey, whatever the customer wants. Customer service is paramount. everything. And so we had the question. Obviously, everyone saw it on the news. And so we had the question. And what was answered to us was the company was, as they were going through the process with the CEO, they were withholding his income. They were withholding his income pending the investigation. But the problem was it was compensation that he had already earned and worked for. And he had already earned it previously. This was deferred compensation that was owed to him. So something that's legally, you have to pay him, right? You cannot withhold his compensation because he had already done the work. The work is out there and the company has grown because of it. But it's morally questionable because if I pay him, am I saying what he did was right to push sales? Am I condoning the actions that we're in trouble for now legally? Did that help give clarification?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think I attract pretty ethical clients that align because I share my morals so much publicly.
I got a better one.
Okay, go for it.
I'm sorry. I got a better one.
No, you're
So there's a lawyer who he helps with prenup. I told you she helps with prenups.
good.
The wife, the husband wanted to say, if you divorce me within this a certain amount of time, then you don't get this money. That's legal, and she signed it. That's legal, right? And she signed it, agreement. She was frame of mind. She was good to go, and she signed it. Now she's contesting it, saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm the reason why he even has this money." All these things, but it's legal, but it's morally questionable to leave her with no money and leave her, right? That's morally questionable. As a man, you should want the mother of your children to still thrive and win and succeed. That's morally questionable.
That's a
Have
whole
you
nother
ever?
conversation.
I'm sorry. But the show is called Gentleman Style Podcast, so we're staying in the breadth of there are gentlemen watching this show who have a heart and have a moral guide and a principle to them.
Well,
And
that's
women here,
encouraging to know as a newly single woman.
yes, ma'am. Have you ever advised a client, "Hey, I understand that you can legally do this, but this isn't right to her"?
So, I mean, I don't do family law. Business
Fair.
law is pretty, I mean, we still have emotions because it's our livelihood, right? We're supporting our kids, our families, ourselves, and all of that. No, I really don't think. I'm trying to think. I mean, I have one client that sometimes I make my head go, huh. But if I really felt morally about something, I tell my clients. Like I'm
Okay.
very much if I'm not, and I'll, I have to balance also my license as well, even if it's legal and my reputation. If I ever crossed a situation where I felt like it was legal but morally questionable, I would say something to them, judge their response, and if they still wanted me to move forward as an actor of it, I would tell them no. I far enough along in my career now that I'm not afraid to lose a client. But kind of in parallel to this, I've had conversations with many business owner clients who I'll say, you have a legal claim. This isn't really what you're asking, but you have a legal claim, but look how much you're going to spend me, and you're going to be upside down in the end. Right? Like, so it's one of those, it's like you got the legal, then you have the real world application. Same thing like this. Is it legal, but morally questionable, right? Like for me, business is bigger than just especially in law, it's bigger than just what's in law. At the end of the day, the law is the law, but I'm not going home and sleeping in bed with the law in my mind. I am with my heart and who I am morally. And so I think though, no, I've never, as I'm sitting here going through like my Rolodex, show my age, of people, of my clients, I don't think I've ever had anybody that's said morally questionable. I may have had a client or two that I didn't feel like they were fully giving me the truth about a case, but I pushed them and then in the end told them, I'm not going to pursue this on your behalf. I don't really know if that's exactly what you were asking, but I felt like they thought they could bend the story to me. But when I start asking for the evidence, they start backpedaling because I'm not going to put my neck on the line for something morally questionable either.
Absolutely not. That's a testament to you. That's a testament to, again, what she said in the very beginning. When she was about to publish the book, it conflicts, right? It conflicts. Even though she could have launched everything, Target on the shelves, Walmart on the shelves, everything. it conflicts with the person. This is a real person we're talking to, y'all. This is a real person with real human being, unlike other people that may not be morally right. Miss Raquel, y'all. I've been looking forward to this question all night.
Okay, you're freaking me out now. Now I'm scared, sweating. Oh.
When business partnerships go bad,
Oh.
what advice or what would you say to someone or a team of people, two business owners, how to protect themselves or exit a business partnership gracefully?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I can speak to this as somebody who was a business partner. I had a law partner for a while, and then also representing businesses in these business divorces. Really, the best setup, and this is going to be a really bad answer, I think, if you're already in a situation like this, it's cart before the horse sort of situation, but having the proper partnership legal documents up front of decision making, who's responsible for what. Majority of business partnerships really aren't, that I've seen, are not really one party necessarily intentionally trying to hurt the business or the other business partner. Majority of the time, it's a breakdown in communication and mismanaged expectations somewhere. And so that's where a contract can really, because it's like a marriage or a interpersonal or romantic relationship or even a friendship, just being able to communicate properly. We all communicate in our own ways, and having it in writing not only sets the expectations from the very beginning, but then when it is time for this business divorce, makes it cleaner, and it's going to make it so much cheaper. And the top clients that I've had, and when I say top, the ones that had to pay out the most amount of money and the most amount of time and energy to get out of business divorce, have been family businesses. So those that are in business with family members, they don't do that first step of having the documents, because they're like, oh, it's family. Well, let me tell you how freaking awkward it's probably going to be about for Thanksgiving this year for one of the ones that I just did, because it became a mess. Everyone was fighting about it. The business just had to be sold because they had to pay off creditors. It just was a mess that really could have been prevented or at least mitigated, reduce the damages and the time and money spent on it by having the proper documentation. But in a perfect world, all these businesses, all your business partnerships would work out. I had a business partner, a law partner for a while, really enjoyed having him. We just had different business goals at the end of the day. And so we parted amicably. We had the documents, but we didn't have to use them. But it was there if we ever needed to resolve any disputes. We had none. We're still amicable to this day. I refer people to him. He refers people to me. We just had different business goals. I was in a different stage of life at that point. He was as well. And so I don't know. I guess I forgot what the original question was now, but I think business partnerships are so tricky, and they're not, think of it like this. You mentioned prenups earlier. Getting the proper documentation when you get into business with someone is like getting a prenup. It's just there if you need it. If you never need it, great. It's just a document that sits on your hard drive. No worries. But it is going to save you so much time, money, and energy in the end. I keep saying that phrase, time, money, and energy, because I feel like a lot of lawyers just talk about the money. But as a business owner, we know our time and energy spent away from our business loses us what? Money, and you're paying out money. And we don't want that. But yeah, so for business partnerships, I don't know, I'm in the camp right now in my life. Maybe ask me in 5-10 years, I might have a business partner again. I don't really desire to do that. I would rather, if I'm going to fail, I'd rather it be because of me and not somebody else. So even if I did do all the right legal steps, I don't know. I do see the benefits of business partnerships. It's just very difficult over the years for me to get behind them, because I've seen, again, as a lawyer, I do a lot of cleanup messes, so that makes sense. But I've seen more issues arising out of business partnerships than just solo business owners.
I love this, and I love this question because it's so profound. What you said, families are the common ones that have the worst and the nastiest. What's one reason, if you could share, without with respect to the client, what's one reason that you saw a business partnership dissolve? What was it? Because of money? Was it because one person wanted to chillax? One person was the worker bee? What are the common things you see in these breakups that are causing these business relationships to end? Because when you start, everybody has the same hustle, the same grind. same mission, and then something falls apart. What fell apart?
You just answered it for yourself. You just said all the things. Like when they first start out, everyone's gung-ho and excited. And then at some point you become unequally yoked. And then one person or multiple people become frustrated because they're earning the same as the person that's not pulling their weight. And then they become resentful. And because it's families and they're trying to keep the peace, they're less, from my opinion, that I've seen, they're less likely to communicate. They just kind of hope it'll resolve itself because they're trying to preserve Thanksgiving and Christmas around the table together, right? But that's kind of the bad way to do it. It's kind of like if you're in a marriage and you don't speak up about an unmet need or something that you're frustrated about, it just festers and festers and festers. Same thing for business partnerships. And I remember it was a couple of years ago, I did a really, really, really contentious one locally. And it was just cousins, actually. So it wasn't even like it was marital partners or siblings. And when we got into the nitty-gritty stages, when everyone finally started communicating from all sides of what the issues were, I remember my client saying to me, he never told me that. I had no idea he was upset about X, Y, and Z. So it really can sometimes be as simple as ensuring communication. Now that I think about it, I should start referring them all to therapy first before we move into a business divorce.
I have a thriving mental health practice and counseling. So if you ever need someone to refer clients
I
to,
can send them over.
What is a win? What's a victory that you've won for one of your clients that you can share? What's the best legal fight you've won for a client?
I think, well, I have two that I've actually done in the last month. I think one was that federal trademark infringement case that I mentioned where the client had just stuck something on her website, didn't know she couldn't use it. And that would have been $500,000, $1 million. She would have had to shut her business and damages, where I was able to settle that. And then the other win is not as sexy, I guess, or as fun, but I've had a client over the years who has built books of business and sold it off. And we just sold his business for $30 million last week. And the win part isn't even that. That was the biggest deal I've done to date, but it was him on the phone saying, thank you so much. Now my kids have generational wealth.
How did you play a role in that? Did you help?
I negotiated the sale of his company and the contracts.
Oh, wow. So you drafted him up, and then the way he wanted it and what you wanted to protect, and okay, perfect.
And then he was bought out by someone else. Actually, I have a better one for you if we have time. I had a newly single mom from a domestic violence situation. This was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. She's a fitness influencer and she had trademarked a slogan that she was using. She was able to license it to Reebok, Nike, and these other major companies. Well, somebody came in and was infringing upon it, and they even tried to take away the mark from her. And I was able to fight and beat that. And actually, you know, it's really funny that you brought this up, because I didn't really mention this when you asked how I got into law. I was doing business, went to law school, actually thinking, oh, I'm going to have a change of pace. I'm going to do criminal law. Specifically, I wanted to be a prosecutor for child sex crimes. That's where my heart really was, that I wanted to help protect the young children in our society. I worked as a guardian ad litem for a while, but by the time I graduated, it just didn't financially make sense. I had so many kids, prosecutors made next to nothing. And so I moved into the business part, and I didn't fall in love with it actually until this phone call with this single mother who had escaped a DV situation. And the only way she was able to escape, because all the money she was getting from licensing out this trademark, she was crying to me on the phone, thanking me. She goes, now my kids and I can move out of this basement and start our lives. And I struggled for a long time because I thought, I'm not doing good in the world if I'm not beating the evils of, you know, crimes against people, crimes against children. So I struggled. I mean, I still liked what I did, but I struggled for a long time. And it wasn't until that conversation that I was like, dang, I am making an impact here.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. This has been an incredible conversation. This has been epic. You are necessary.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I appreciate you, and I want to say thank you for what you do. I want to say this to you publicly. Thank you for not giving up, not quitting, sticking through the fight, and helping the new entrepreneur, the big entrepreneur, and everybody in between protect their legacy, protect their investment, protect their resource, and protect their time and their future. Because this is the future, right? These are businesses that hopefully will continue on long after you and I and High Five and Fiverr and all these things are gone. So thank you for what you do. I wanted to say that to you publicly.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. How can people connect with you? How can people find you? The train has left the station, but it's not too late to save that business, start that rebranding, start protecting those trademarks, and see if they can, before they spend millions of dollars, maybe a few $1,000s, and start over. How can people find you?
I am the only Rachel Brenke on the internet. So rachelbrenke.com. I'm on all the socials. I do a lot on Instagram and Facebook. Or Eden Law. Any of those you can submit to. You just have a question. You want to try to find a resource. I've got my own podcast. I've got tons of articles, like 20 years worth, that we can send you if you're not in a financial position to be able to afford an attorney. My team has been with me for so long. They know the top questions. They're happy to help. So don't be shy. No questions too small or irrelevant. All of it's going to help guide you to the next step that you need to do. And that's what I'm here for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. This woman is a rock star, y'all. We are unfortunately out of time. We got to let this incredible, phenomenal woman go. She has many more lives to change, many more business saves, and many more people to create impact for. But connect. For our audio listeners, that's RaquelBrenke.com. Check her out. Get on board. Connect, and change your lives, change your business today. Like we end every show. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible, super fragilistic, espialidocious, incredible Miss Raquel, changing lives and impacting your business today. Love you guys. Bye.